Hi, it's Tim out at Rice Creek Field Station. We have a program about spring awakening. And if you start taking a look behind me, we got some activity birds back here, and some of those birds are very active. But before we can have a spring awakening, we have to have something that was sleeping before it can awaken. So I thought I would talk about something that occurs starting in mid-October, November, December, called hibernation. Because after hibernating, we get a lot of awakening going. So what is hibernation? Hibernation is basically the body, metabolism of the body slowing down and an animal sleeping for at least exceeding 24 hours. So hibernation, like I said, is a sustained deep drop in metabolism. It's controlled by the endocrine system and the hormonal system. The endocrine system controls the breathing, the heart rate, metabolism, and that slows dramatically to the point where the animal goes into a deep sleep. There are three types of hibernation. We have true hibernation, torpor, and brumation. Now, each of these have a different function. True hibernators are animals that have their body temperature drops, they slow their breathing, metabolism slows, and they enter a deep sleep. And the sleep is so deep that loud noises, touching, contact will not waken these animals. Some of the best examples that most people are aware of are bears. Bears hibernate mid-December all the way to March. They find dens in hollow trees, and caves, and crevices. And what they do is they start doubling their food intake all the way through the end of summer into fall. And then they find these places to go in and fall asleep. And their body temperature drops dramatically. Their heart rate slows down, just like we had talked before about hibernation. The only ones that wake up are the females. Females wake up in January, February to give birth. And after that, they go back to sleep. Another example of a true hibernator would be a chipmunk. And they go to sleep and fall asleep in mid-December, and they wake in mid-March. And what they do is they dig a burrow into the ground, 3 feet underground. They may find a hole, and they go in there and sleep. And what they have an interesting thing is they collect the food and store it with them for when they need to eat. Bats are true hibernators. They get together in large dens and kind of group together to stay warm. You can find them in hollow trees and barns, human dwellings. So those are some examples of true hibernators. Another hibernation type is called torpor. And you find these in deer, mice, skunks. They have a light hibernation. They do wake up. When the weather gets warmer in the winter, warm weather days, they wake up. So for example, a skunk. Right now, as a matter of fact, this is end of February, and I've had skunks walking around my yard because it got warm. And so when they do go into hibernation, this torpor, they become less active. They huddle together, skunks do, under structures, and they have a tendency to move closer to food supplies. What's interesting about a skunk is they lose about 30% of their body weight. Deer mice, they do the same thing. I'm sure everybody's had a problem with mice in their house in the winter. What do? November, December, they start to move indoors. They find places that are warmer. Yes, they become less active. They store their food in places, but they move into these warmer dwellings, and they become active in spring, late March. The other one we have is brumation. And this is really what occurs with cold-blooded animals such as reptiles and amphibians. And this is triggered by a drop in temperature and shorter days. Animals, in this case, they wake up just to drink and shift positions. So for example, a garter snake. A garter snake goes into a hibernation state in late October through March. And what they do is they find a den, and in this den they try to group with a bunch of other reptiles and keep themselves warm. Frogs. Everyone wonders where frogs go. Frogs, their metabolism slows down, their heart rate is barely detectable, and it starts in winter, right after one of the first frosts, and they wake up during the spring thaw. And they do not bury themselves in the mud, they lay on the surface of the mud. And there they can kind of, or they're partially buried, and they can move around a little bit, adjust the position, because they still have to absorb oxygen through the skin from the water. Turtles, September, October, they go into a hibernation state, and they wake up in March. And turtles bury themselves in the mud in a pond, a lake, or a stream. And the metabolism slows down so far it's barely detectable, and it's altered to survive. The animals are altered to survive without oxygen. So right now, if you're looking around and you're outdoors, besides birds we see, like right now, we have waterfowl flying into the area. Like I've just seen some hooded mergansers, some canvasbacks. Those are all signs of spring awakening, but the awakening of these hibernating animals in the spring is one of the greatest awakenings you can find. Thank you. Have a great day.